Madeleine Mccann. She was 3 years old when she disappeared from a holiday apartment in Praia da Luz, Portugal, in May 2007. Her parents, Kate and Jerry Mccann, had left her and her twin siblings sleeping while they dined at a nearby restaurant with friends. When Kate returned to check on the children, Madeleine was gone. The case exploded into international headlines almost immediately, partly because of the family's relentless media campaign, and partly because no one could explain how a small child had simply vanished from a quiet resort town. Suspects were named and cleared. The Mccanns themselves were briefly treated as persons of interest by Portuguese authorities before being exonerated. Decades of tips, searches, and investigations across multiple countries followed. In 2022, German prosecutors named a man named Christian Bruckner as a suspect, but no charges have been filed as of today. Madeleine was never found. Natalee Holloway. She was an 18-year-old American student who vanished during a high school graduation trip to Aruba in May 2005. On the last night of the trip, she was seen leaving a nightclub with a young Dutchman named Joran van der Sloot and 2 of his friends. She never returned to her hotel. Aruba's investigation drew heavy international criticism, and American media covered the case around the clock for months. Van der Sloot was arrested and released multiple times. Years later, he was convicted of murdering a different woman in Peru. In 2023, he confessed to killing Natalee and led investigators to a location in Aruba. Human remains were found, though conclusive identification remained difficult. He was eventually brought to the United States to face extortion charges connected to Natalee's case. Etan Patz. He was 6 years old when he disappeared on May 25, 1979, the first time his mother had ever let him walk alone to the school bus stop in New York City. He never arrived. Etan's case became one of the most recognized missing child cases in American history. His face was among the first ever printed on a milk carton as part of a national awareness campaign. The date of his disappearance, May 25th, was eventually designated as National Missing Children's Day in the United States. For decades, a neighbor named Jose Ramos was considered the prime suspect but was never charged. Then, in 2012, investigators shifted focus to a man named Pedro Hernandez, who had worked at a nearby store. He confessed and was convicted of murder in 2017, though the case involved no physical evidence and relied almost entirely on that confession. James Bulger. He was 2 years old when he was taken from a shopping center in Bootle, England, in February 1993. Security footage showed him being led away by 2 10-year-old boys, Robert Thompson and John Venables. His body was found 2 days later on a railway line. The murder shocked the United Kingdom and provoked a wide public debate about childhood violence and the justice system. Thompson and Venables were convicted and became the youngest convicted murderers in modern British history. They were released in 2001 under new identities, a decision that remained deeply controversial for years. The CCTV footage of little James being walked away by his killers became one of the most haunting images in British crime history, and it still surfaces in discussions about public safety and child welfare. Azaria Chamberlain. She was 9 weeks old when she disappeared during a family camping trip near Uluru in Central Australia in August 1980. Her mother, Lindy Chamberlain, told police that a dingo had taken her baby from the tent. The claim was met with widespread disbelief. Lindy was convicted of murder in 1982 and sentenced to life in prison, while her husband Michael was convicted as an accessory. The case divided Australia for years and became a cultural flashpoint about media trials, public opinion, and the justice system. Lindy was released in 1986 after new evidence emerged. She was fully exonerated in 1988, and a fourth inquest in 2012 finally confirmed the official cause of death as a dingo attack. The case remains one of the most debated miscarriages of justice in Australian history. True stories like these leave many questions unanswered. If you want to keep following along, subscribe to the channel and participate in the comments. Elizabeth Smart. She was 14 years old when she was taken from her bedroom in Salt Lake City, Utah, in June 2002, while her family slept nearby. Her abductor was a man named Brian David Mitchell, a self-described street preacher who had briefly worked at the Smart home. He took Elizabeth with the help of his wife, Wanda Barzee, and kept her hidden in the mountains and later moved with her in plain sight. She was found alive 9 months later, in March 2003, after a member of the public recognized Mitchell. Elizabeth's case drew enormous media attention, partly because of the dramatic circumstances of her recovery. She has since become a prominent advocate for missing children and survivors of abuse, appearing regularly in public and speaking about her experiences. 7. Johnny Gosch. He was 12 years old when he disappeared while delivering newspapers in West Des Moines, Iowa, in September 1982. He was one of the first missing children to appear on a milk carton. His mother, Noreen Gosch, became one of the driving forces behind legislation requiring law enforcement to act immediately on missing child reports rather than waiting the traditional 24 to 48 hours. For years, police had few leads. The case took a strange turn in 1997 when Noreen claimed that a young man appeared at her door late at night, told her he was Johnny, spoke with her briefly, and left. That claim was never verified. Johnny Gosch was never officially found, and the case remains open. His disappearance helped reshape how America responds to missing children cases at the law enforcement level. 8. Ben Needham. He was 21 months old when he vanished near the Greek island of Kos in July 1991 while his family was renovating a farmhouse there. Ben was playing outside when he was last seen. His mother, Carrie Needham, spent the following decades campaigning tirelessly for answers, keeping the case alive through media appearances and sustained public pressure. British and Greek authorities conducted multiple investigations over the years. In 2016, a significant search was carried out after a man came forward, suggesting that Ben may have been accidentally killed by a digger operator who then buried him to hide the incident. That search did not yield conclusive results, and Ben has never been found. The case became symbolic in Britain of how families of missing children can find themselves with nowhere to turn and no resolution. 9. Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. The two 10-year-old best friends disappeared from Soham, England, in August 2002 after attending a birthday party. A photograph taken that evening, showing both girls smiling in matching Manchester United shirts, became one of the most widely circulated images in British missing persons history. Their bodies were found almost 2 weeks later. The man convicted of their murders was Ian Huntley, the school caretaker, who had lived with his girlfriend, a teaching assistant at the girls' school. Huntley had greeted police on camera during the search and expressed concern for the missing children. The case led to a major review of how criminal background checks are conducted in the United Kingdom, resulting in stricter vetting rules for anyone working with children. 10. Relisha Rudd. She was 8 years old when she went missing in Washington, D.C. in March 2014 after living with her family in a homeless shelter. She had been signed out of school multiple times by a shelter janitor named Khalil Tatum, who officials later discovered had been providing her with clothing, toys, and care that her parents had failed to give her. When authorities went looking for Tatum, they found that he had murdered his wife and then died by suicide. Relisha's body was never found. The case raised uncomfortable questions about child welfare oversight, the conditions inside the shelter and how authorities had failed to flag the situation before it became a tragedy. Despite extensive searches, Relisha remains one of the most tragic, unresolved cases involving a missing child in recent American history.